Will the iPhone 13 have a notch? Yes or no? A bunch of new info has just dropped on the iPhone, and we basically now know Apple's iPhone master plan for the next couple of years. We know the future of the notch and under-display Touch ID, and things get really exciting really fast. But before we get too excited, I do have some bad news about the iPhone 13. And by the end of this video, you'll know whether it's worth waiting a couple months to get that new iPhone, or why you might want to pass on the iPhone 13 this year. So we typically learn new information about the upcoming iPhones in little bits, maybe a little tidbit of news here, a little tidbit there, and it kind of comes slowly and starts to evolve into more of a clearer picture. But sometimes we get really lucky and a massive amount of information is dropped all at once. And that is exactly what just happened when Ming-Chi Kuo released his research note about the iPhone 13, the iPhone 14, the iPhone 15, and other Apple products that the company is working to develop and release in the next couple of years. And this paints a pretty clear picture on what we could see this year with the iPhone 13, what features we're going to see, what we're not going to see, and also some surprises of things we thought were for sure features that are now not gonna happen anymore, apparently, according to Ming-Chi Kuo. And let me just make this clear before we jump into this, that Ming-Chi Kuo is a renowned Apple analyst. He's got an 80% track record for those keeping score at home, and he's usually pretty reliable, though sometimes he does change course. So make of that what you will, just know going into this that no one is perfect, but this is the latest info we have on what Apple is working to release next. So let's start with what Ming-Chi Kuo is confirming on things we kind of already knew and were expecting to see in the iPhone 13 lineup. First things first, the iPhone 13 lineup is going to be pretty much identical to that of the iPhone 12, meaning the design is going to be the same, screen sizes will be the same, and most importantly for many out there wondering, yes, there will be an iPhone 13 mini. I know we've heard reports about poor sales from the 12 mini this year and rumors that Apple could cancel it moving forward, and that still could be the case with the iPhone 14 and in other future generations, but at least for right now, the mini iPhone is sticking around for one more year at least. So there will be a 13 mini, a 13, a 13 Pro, and a 13 Pro Max. We also are getting more confirmation on the long-rumored ProMotion display. Ming-Chi Kuo says, yes, this is coming, and specifically, it's coming to the 2 Pro models of the iPhone, something we were kind of expecting to be just a Pro-end feature this year. And we're also getting confirmation that the notch should get smaller this year. Now, the big question is, how much smaller is the notch actually going to get? And unfortunately, no one really has a definitive answer for this. Some analysts believe that the notch is going to significantly shrink in size, thanks to smaller Face ID components, that Apple could make the notch on the top of the iPhone much, much smaller, and if it looks anything like these renders, that would be a very welcomed addition. While others aren't so optimistic and they think the notch is going to get smaller, but it's going to be much more of a subtle change, just barely smaller than the notch we have right now, but it would be a little less obtrusive. You can kind of see a little schematic here of what some thoughts of this notch change could be, and that would be nice to see, but definitely not as flashy as a bigger shrink in the notch as some are suggesting. So we'll have to see what the future of the notch is, though we'll come back to this in a minute because your next iPhone after the 13 might not have a notch at all. We're also hearing that the iPhone 13 should adopt a 1 terabyte storage size option this year. So for those of you who want to store as much on your iPhone as possible, that should be a very welcomed addition to see in the configurator this year. And we're also getting some clarification on the changes coming to the camera. Ming-Chi Kuo is basically confirming some earlier rumors that suggest the iPhone 13 lineup, all phones, will get the sensor shift stabilization technology only found right now in the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So that stabilization, that hardware stabilization, should come down the line to the 13 mini, 13 and 13 Pro. And if you're looking to keep the video a little bit more stable and have a little bit better time of trying to catch focus when you're shooting some action shots, that stabilization should definitely help and should be available in all iPhone 13 models coming this year. We're also hearing from Kuo that all the iPhone 13s will have larger battery capacities, so battery life should be better on all iPhone 13 models, and they should all adopt the Snapdragon X60 cell modem, which should improve 5G speeds, reliability. It's just a newer, faster, better cell modem that should be inside all of the new iPhone 13s. But now to the most exciting part of this video, let's talk about the things that we're not gonna see. Now, we got excited about some of these features. Many people thought this was a done deal, that a lot of these features were locked in, ready to go with the iPhone 13. But according to Ming-Chi Kuo, some of the stuff we got really excited about will not happen and will not be on this year's iPhone 13. Starting first with the idea of a portless iPhone launching this year. Now, Ming-Chi Kuo was one that talked about the idea of a portless iPhone launching this year in 2021, all the way back in a report in 2019. He said that Apple was testing at least one model that didn't have a port, and that Apple could adopt a portless iPhone starting in 2021. But now Kuo is clarifying that he does not believe that is going to happen this year. There will not be a portless iPhone. There will not be a model that doesn't have a port. It won't be an option. All of the iPhone 13 models, according to him, will come with Lightning port, and the portless option for the iPhone will have to stay in the labs a bit longer and maybe could be seen in a couple of years from now. But something interesting to take note of kind of along these same lines is a recent patent Apple was granted for this sort of magnetic kind of smart connector looking port at the bottom of an iPhone. Basically what this suggests is maybe at the bottom of future iPhones, there will be sort of a MagSafe port or some kind of smart connector that allows you to interface with the cable on your iPhone, but not have a physical port. It'd be more of like a docking connector or something similar to the smart connector we've seen on iPads of years past. Next, let's move on to camera and what we're gonna see and what we're not gonna see. So first things first, there was a rumor floating around for a while from different sources that Apple was looking to put the LiDAR sensor on all of the iPhones launching in 2021. So it wouldn't just be a Pro-end iPhone thing, that the 13 mini all the way to the Pro Max would have the exact same LiDAR sensor built in. According to Ming-Chi Kuo, this is not happening this year. According to him in his report, the LiDAR sensor is going to remain a Pro-end feature only. So only the 13 Pro and Pro Max will have a LiDAR sensor built in. We had also heard some reports that Apple was looking to upgrade all of the ultra-wide cameras on the entire iPhone 13 lineup, but yet again, Ming-Chi Kuo says there is going to be an upgrade to the ultra-wide camera, but it is only going to be a new feature on the iPhone 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max. Kuo says the ultra-wide camera should move from an f2.4 to an f1.8 aperture, and autofocus should be improved as well. So those ultra-wide shots should look a little sharper, should be a little bit better, and if you're looking to pick up a Pro-end iPhone this year, you've got a little something to look forward to. But the biggest letdown and the biggest head scratcher of everything we're about to hear in this video is this right now. And that is the fact that according to Ming-Chi Kuo, he is unclear and kind of doubts that an iPhone 13 is going to launch with Touch ID built in. Now, it's really important that you see this statement for yourself, so I'm gonna put it up on screen. Here's what Ming-Chi Kuo says. Basically, he doesn't see a clear timeline for Apple adding Touch ID to the iPhone. But to be very specific here, Kuo is talking about Touch ID built into a power button, not the under-display Touch ID sensor specifically, because all the reports and all the rumors we've heard from multiple outlets suggest that Apple is going to build Touch ID under the display this year with the iPhone, that you'll have both Face ID and Touch ID. And that got many of us, myself included, very, very excited. But Kuo is saying that might not happen, but his statement isn't super clear. If this does kind of mean the same thing, if he's talking about Touch ID more in general, then it might not be a feature on this year's iPhone. Touch ID just isn't ready, and we might have to wait yet another year to see Touch ID reintroduce itself to the iPhone lineup. Or maybe Ming-Chi Kuo didn't mention it for another reason, or in this case, maybe he's talking about the iPhone SE Plus and the new SE that's supposed to get the Touch ID sensor built into the power button. We're not exactly sure, but just so you are well aware, this is a report going around that Touch ID might be looking doubtful for the iPhone 13, and this is the note as to why. He doesn't address it specifically, so we don't know, but just keep your expectations a little more realistic that maybe it just might not happen this year. But it is important to note in times like these that this is all just sort of a guessing game. These are analysts who are not always perfect. Reporters don't always get it right. We're making our best estimation and our best guess at what we could see with the iPhone. Typically, things seem to pan out exactly as we report them, but sometimes they don't. But with that in mind, we're not done just yet, because Ming-Chi Kuo also dropped some new information on upcoming models that are beyond the iPhone 13, starting with the iPhone 14. Ming-Chi Kuo says next year in 2022 that Apple is planning to release at least one iPhone model with a hole punch notch. So the traditional notch that we either know and hate or love right now will not be a thing anymore, and Apple will kind of follow in the footsteps of Samsung and Google with a hole punch notch at the top of their phones. But going a step even further into 2023 with the alleged iPhone 15, This is the iPhone that Ming-Chi Kuo says is the one we've kind of all been waiting for. According to his report, this would be the iPhone with no notch, no hole punch, no obstruction, one big, beautiful pane of glass, and this phone is basically all screen. Either the Face ID technology will move under the display, or it'll be kind of built into the bezel like the iPad Pros, but this will not have any kind of obstruction on the display, and you'll just be able to kind of enjoy your screen without having to look at any ugly notch or hole punch. This sounds super exciting, but it just keeps getting better. Kuo specifically states that this iPhone launching in 2023 will have the under-display Touch ID sensor built in, and this rumored periscoping telephoto camera will be a feature on here as well. And last but certainly not least, a little bit of info for those of you who are really interested in a foldable iPhone. According to Ming-Chi Kuo, it looks like Apple is working on a 7.5 to 8-inch iPhone with a folding display, but it's still in the really early stages of development, and Apple doesn't really even know if they're going to launch it. There's still a lot of technical and logistical and production issues that they'd have to overcome in order for this to be a real device, though it could come if everything goes according to plan in the next couple of years. So what are your thoughts on the iPhone 13? If this did not have an under-display Touch ID sensor built in, would you still buy it? Would you still be excited about it? Is there still enough coming to this phone to be excited about? Or do you think that Apple is just saving all the features for next year's model? Do you think they're putting too much stock in the Pro-end phones and not giving enough to the 13 mini and the 13? What are your thoughts on this year's iPhones? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, your thoughts on the 14 and the 15. Are you starting to save now? Is there one of these that's more exciting than another? Let me know down below as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle. Thank you so much, and I'll see ya in the next one.